She was standing at a rundown bus stop on West Sugar Creek Road, holding the hand of a boy who looked just like him. Same eyes, same smile, same dimpled chin. And she didn't say a single word. She just looked him dead in the face and walked away. Have you ever locked eyes with someone from your past, someone you once loved, only to realize they've been carrying your entire future in their arms? For 7 years, he believed she disappeared because she gave up on their marriage. But the truth, it's messier. Much messier. And now, the boy who shares his DNA is asking questions he can't answer. Why did she vanish? Why keep their son hidden? And when the truth explodes in front of a private school audience and a furious fiancé, will he choose love over legacy? If this story grabs you already, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to Stories by Mr. Flex, and drop a comment if you've ever had a moment that changed everything. Let's get into it. It was supposed to be another forgettable Tuesday. Cold wind, stiff traffic, and too many unread emails waiting for him at the office. But as Grayson's sleek black Tesla slowed at a red light on Sugar Creek Road, the ordinary shattered into something unforgettable. There she was. Her, standing at a cracked sidewalk corner near the faded brick wall of a laundromat, holding the hand of a small boy in a worn puffer jacket. The child was bouncing slightly on his heels, talking animatedly and pointing to a puddle on the road. But Grayson didn't see the puddle. His chest tightened. That child. Same eyes. Same unruly brown curls, faint dimples in both cheeks, same cleft in the chin that Grayson had inherited from his grandfather. His mouth went dry. His foot slipped off the brake just enough for the car to roll forward an inch before jerking it back. He couldn't take his eyes off them, off her. Her hair was pulled back under a knit cap, and even through the layers of budget winter wear, her posture was unmistakably familiar, the same proud, deliberate stance she always had, even when the world tried to knock her down. She hadn't changed much in 7 years, but she looked tired. Thinner, maybe. It wasn't the exhaustion of long hours and no sleep. It was the kind of weariness life hands you when you've had to rebuild from the ground up, alone. Grayson blinked, wondering if this was a trick of traffic and timing. He gripped the steering wheel with both hands, his jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Was it really her? Was that his son? Before he could even process it, she looked up, right at him, no confusion, no shock, just a still, knowing gaze that made his stomach lurch. She recognized him instantly. And then, she did something he hadn't prepared for. She looked away, just like that. She turned back to the boy, said something he couldn't hear, and started walking in the opposite direction, toward the bus stop bench, now shaded by a faded metal awning. No wave, no pause, no explanation. Grayson scrambled for the door handle. He didn't even realize he had parked crookedly, tires jutting halfway into the bike lane. He just needed to know. Needed to ask. But by the time he stepped out, breath visible in the cold air, a city bus hissed to a stop in front of them. She climbed aboard, holding the boy's hand tightly. She didn't look back once. The doors closed, the bus pulled off, and she was gone. Welcome back to Stories by Mr. Flex, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If you're new to this family, thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button because it helps us share stories like this on YouTube. If you're already subscribed, drop a like and tell us in the comments. Have you ever crossed paths with a person from your past and didn't know what to say? Let's get into it. We all carry regrets, things left unsaid, moments we wish we could rewind. But what if the person you once loved more than anything walked back into your life, holding your legacy in their arms? Grayson was a powerful CEO now, with a skyline office and a private elevator. But none of that could stop the pit in his stomach from and found himself sitting in his silent uptown condo, staring at an untouched glass of bourbon. The city twinkled outside his window. Banks, law firms, tech towers, the kingdom he'd spent the last decade building. But his mind wasn't on quarterly earnings or pending acquisitions. It was on her, Nia, The girl who used to walk barefoot on campus grass even when it rained. The one who made her own body butter in their dorm bathroom. Who once argued with his entire econ class about how wealth wasn't the same as value. She was the only woman who had ever challenged him, the only one who ever called him out when his ambition grew teeth. They had built something real back then. Until they didn't. She disappeared in her third trimester. No calls, no goodbye, just vanished. His family said she had a meltdown, that she'd always been too emotional, too different. His mother had smiled too sweetly at the news. His father didn't bother asking follow-up questions, but Grayson never believed it. He searched. Quietly, yes, perhaps too quietly, but he had. Her old apartment was vacant, her number disconnected. She wasn't on any social media. It was like she'd ghosted the entire world. And now, years later, she reappears, holding a boy who looked just like him. Grayson stood in his kitchen, suit jacket draped over a chair, tie loosened. He opened his phone and typed Charlotte Public Schools into the search bar. Maybe the kid was enrolled somewhere nearby. He deleted it. Too creepy. He scrolled through his photos from college, pausing on one of them, laughing together on a picnic blanket. Her head was tilted back, eyes closed, and the sunlight made her skin glow. He hadn't looked at that picture in years. Now it wouldn't leave his screen. The next morning he canceled a board meeting and drove back to the bus stop. He waited. Same time, same place. No sign of her. Day after day he returned, coffee in hand, nerves tighter with each passing hour, until Friday, when he saw her again. Same bus stop, same boy, but this time he wasn't staying in the car. He had questions, and he wasn't leaving until he had answers. Grayson remembered the first time he saw her, really saw her. It wasn't in the library, though. She'd always camped out by the windows, with a spiral notebook covered in ink and margin notes that looked like a second language. It wasn't in the cafeteria, though he'd often noticed the way people lit up when she laughed, head tilted back, uninhibited. No, the first time he saw her, really took her in, was in the east wing of Caldwell Hall on the second floor, a narrow dorm hallway where the scent of coconut oil and flat irons thickened the air. He had been delivering a project binder to his roommate who lived 2. Inside, a small crowd of girls sat chatting, scrolling phones, and sipping from plastic. Pressing her hair out section by section, her wrist flicking with expert speed. She was barefoot, in sweatpants and a hoodie with the school's Black Student Union logo on it. Her hair was wrapped in a colorful scarf. Her eyes scanned the mirror constantly, focused and calm, even as she cracked jokes with the others. Grayson paused. The hallway buzzed with energy, but he only heard her voice. "You got a project due, or you just sightseeing?" she asked without looking up. He hadn't realized she saw him. Roommate." Dropping this off, he said awkwardly, holding up the binder. She nodded slightly and returned to her task. And just like that, he became a regular in her orbit. It started innocently, mutual friends, the occasional lunch. But slowly, he started staying after the study groups were over. He'd pretend to need help with an economics formula just to see her raise an eyebrow and say, "Grayson, you're in grad school. Stop playing." She was 2 years younger, but emotionally sharper than anyone he knew. Her humor cut through pretense, and her mind worked in layers. She knew struggle, she knew resilience, and she made him feel like his wealth and connections meant less than who he was becoming. One late night in the dorm lounge, she told him how she learned to do hair from her aunt, who ran a small beauty parlor off Beatty's Ford Road. She said, "Even when you broke, your edges don't have to be." Nia laughed, twisting a comb through her own curls. "I'm not broke," Grayson said, half joking. She eyed him playfully. "Exactly. That's why you don't know what I mean. Their worlds were different, but in those days, it felt like their differences fed curiosity, not distance." He admired her work ethic. She balanced classes, clients, and tutoring shifts at the student center. Meanwhile, he was knee-deep in MBA internships and tech startup pitches. Some nights, when his stress overflowed, she'd braid his thoughts together with hers, offering advice, teasing him until he laughed, and making him feel like a man, not a machine. But it wasn't perfect. As their bond deepened, so did the pressure. His friends noticed. Some accepted her, others didn't. The ones from wealthier families, law school legacies and investment heirs, often asked subtle questions that grated on Nia's nerves. She's an undergrad still, right? She's not from Charlotte's South End, is she? She does hair, like in the dorm? But Nia was sharp, and she didn't forget. Their first real argument happened after a formal gala hosted by Grayson's fraternity. She had rented a dress, done her own makeup, and turned heads when they arrived. But Grayson's cousin, a trust fund brat from Raleigh, made a comment as they stood near the bar. "She looks good. You always did like the, earthy types." Grayson stiffened. "Don't start, man. Relax. It's just interesting. She's got presence, real community college energy. It was meant as a joke, but when he turned, Nia had already walked away. That night, in his apartment, she said softly, "You think I don't know what that was? You let that man talk about me like I was a class project you're grading. I told him to shut up. Yeah, but you laughed first." He didn't have a comeback. She was right. Still, they held on. Through graduation. Through long nights building Grayson's startup. Through whispered dreams about a future together that didn't require anyone's approval. They made love in the silence between exams. Shared meals made from instant noodles and fancy leftovers he brought home from pitch meetings. They talked about building something real, and then she got pregnant. She never told him, not because she wanted to hurt him, but because she didn't know how to bring a child into a world where every door she stepped through came with judgment. The spring sun in Charlotte painted the university lawns gold that morning, but Nia's stomach was twisted in knots. She'd been invited, or rather summoned, to brunch at Grayson's family estate. It wasn't the kind of invitation you turned down, not when the man you loved insisted his parents just wanted to know the woman who made their son so happy. Grayson's tone had been soft, reassuring. "They'll love you," he said, sliding his fingers through hers the night before. "They just don't know you yet." She wanted to believe him, so she stood that morning in front of the mirror of her small apartment, smoothing the wrinkles out of her thrift store blouse, whispering pep talks under her breath. "You belong anywhere you decide to show up, girl." By the time they reached the long cobblestone driveway, her palms were sweating. The mansion's front yard looked like something out of a magazine. Neatly trimmed hedges, a stone fountain shaped like a cherub, and a porch wide enough to host a wedding. Inside, the scent of lemon polish and money filled the air. Portraits of Grayson's ancestors lined the hallway, every face pale, every frame gilded. Grayson's mother descended the staircase like someone stepping onto a stage. She was tall, elegant, her pearl necklace glowing beneath soft lighting. "Mother, this is Nia," Grayson said, his voice carrying a nervous edge. Mrs. Whitmore's smile was polite but distant. "Oh, so you're Nia?" The silence stretched. Nia forced a gentle smile. "Yes, ma'am. It's nice to meet you." Mrs. Whitmore's eyes trailed from Nia's natural curls down to her modest dress. "Grayson tells me you're a creative." "She's a business major," Grayson jumped in, "and she runs a small hairstyling business on campus." "A business," Mrs. Whitmore repeated, sipping her coffee. "How enterprising." They sat. Crystal plates clinked softly. Nia tried to hold her composure while the older woman steered the conversation like a surgeon. "So, Nia," she said, cutting into her eggs, "what does your family do?" "My mom's a teacher. My dad's a mechanic. Al." Mrs. Whitmore's fork froze midair. "Ah." She smiled again, thinly. "That's honest work. We need more people who appreciate that kind of thing." Nia caught the tone. It wasn't admiration, it was classification. Grayson shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. The rest of brunch was a blur of loaded compliments. "You're so well-spoken. Grayson's always had a soft spot for strong personalities. I hope you don't find our social circle too stiff." Nia smiled through it all, feeling her heartbeat echo behind her ribs. Each sentence felt like a test she hadn't studied for. When Mrs. Whitmore finally stood, she said, "Well, dear, thank you for joining us. It's been illuminating." Nia nodded, thanked her, and excused herself to the foyer. She wanted air. Outside, she exhaled so sharply it fogged the spring air. Grayson followed, guilt etched on his face. "She's old-fashioned. She doesn't mean anything by it." Nia turned to him. Gray, your mother looked at me like I was a mistake you were trying to justify. She's just protective, he said quietly. Protective of what? Her money? Her last name? He ran a hand through his hair. You're reading too much into it. That sentence landed like a slap. Too much, she repeated. You sat there while she picked me apart like I was some experiment. Civil? Nia let out a low laugh. If that's what you call civil, I'd hate to see impolite. She turned to walk down the steps, but he caught her wrist. Don't go. Please, give me time to make her see who you're. She looked back at him, eyes soft but tired. Grayson, if she can't see him already, it's because she doesn't want to. She pulled free. 12 weeks passed. They barely spoke. He buried himself in work, in presentations and investors. She threw herself into finals and clients. He finally called and asked to meet at his apartment. She showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, handstring and bling. She didn't tell him yet that she was pregnant. She planned to, but wanted it to be, in a moment where he were on steady ground. When she arrived, Grayson's mother was already there. Nia froze in the doorway. The older woman stood by the window with a glass of wine, and Grayson low at like a child caught between worlds. Oh, you were here, Mrs. Whitmore, said. No need to sit. This won't take long. Nia slowly set her bag down. Excuse him? Grayson tried to intervene, but the mother raised a hand. Grayson, please. You've made your point. Now I'll make mine. Her voice was steady, sharp. My son's future is bigger than this college romance. He comes from a legacy of leadership and excel, ence, dodorily. Believe you fit in that picture, Nia? Mrs. Whitmore. No. Answer me honestly. Nia's fingers curled into her palms. If it were ever a build my own table. I don't need to ask for a chair at yours. The older woman smiled tightly. Strong words, but you'll find strength alone is not currency in her world. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, thick, crisp. This is a gesture of goodwill. Take it and make a life you can be proud of, but leave a me son out of it. Nia's heart pounded. She stared at the envelope, then at Grayson. Tell me you didn't know about us. He opened his mouth, hesitated, a second too long. That was all she needed. Her voice shook when she said, I thought you were different. She grabbed her bag, shoved past him, and walked out the door. That night, Grayson stood in the hallway, holding the envelope his mother had left behind. He ripped it open. Cash neatly stacked with a note, she'll thank you one day. He never saw her again. What he didn't know was Nia, crying in a bus station bathroom, had one hand on her stomach and a decision in her heart to raise their child alone. Grayson had driven by the school 3 times before he worked up the nerve to stop. The playground fence buzzed with the laughter of children climbing monkey bars and kicking balls across worn turf. He spotted Nia near the far end, crouched low beside a small boy tying his shoelaces. The boy giggled as she tapped his nose playfully, then darted off with a group of classmates. She stood up slowly, brushed her hands against her thighs, and turned. She saw him. Their eyes met through the slats of the fence. Her expression didn't shift. No surprise, no smile. Just steady. He took that as an invitation. By the time he walked around to the gate, she was already heading toward the staff parking lot, keys in hand. The air smelled faintly of hand sanitizer and pencil shavings, a familiar scent from a world Grayson had long since left behind. Nia. She didn't stop walking. Nia, please. She turned, arms crossed. I figured you'd show up eventually. He stopped a few feet away, wind biting his neck. I just want to talk. She nodded at the chain-link gate, then talk, but she didn't unlock it. I saw him again, Grayson said, his voice quiet but tense. The boy, at the bus stop. Same eyes, same chin, same everything. Nia gave a half smile, but there was no warmth in it. You came all this way to tell me my son looks like someone? Don't do that, he said. Do what? That. The sarcasm. This is serious. I've been serious, she replied calmly. Every day for 7 years. That landed harder than he expected. I need to know, he said, swallowing. If he's mine. Silence. Her face didn't move. He tried again. Is he mine, Nia? She finally leaned her weight onto one foot, hand still gripping her keys. You want a test? I want the truth. No, she said. You want confirmation, you already know the truth. He didn't argue, just waited. She looked past him, toward the playground. Her son was now racing around with a soccer ball, cheeks flushed with joy. It took everything in her not to cry. She turned back. Fine, you want a test? You'll get one. But on my terms, name them. We do it at a clinic I choose. No private labs, no backdoor lawyers. You pay for it. Done. And you don't talk to him. Not yet. Grayson's brow furrowed. Why? Because I don't need you popping into his life only to pop right back out if the results scare you. I wouldn't do that. She raised an eyebrow. Wouldn't you? You didn't even come looking when I disappeared. I did look. No, Grayson, she snapped. You asked around, quietly, respectably, the way people like you do when they don't want to make a mess. But you never fought for me. That stung more than he expected. She breathed out slowly, composing herself. Look, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to protect my son. He has a routine, a life. He doesn't need disruption. He nodded once. So when? Tomorrow. 9 a.m. I'll text you the address. And with that she turned and walked back into the school building, leaving him standing outside the gate, heart pounding like he was 20 years old again. The clinic sat tucked between a used furniture store and a Caribbean bakery on the west side of Charlotte, far from the private hospitals Grayson was used to. He arrived first, dressed in jeans and a black jacket, trying hard not to look like he'd just stepped out of a magazine ad. Nia walked in exactly at 9, wearing a windbreaker, jeans, and a tired expression. The boy clung to her hand, looking up at Grayson curiously. He didn't say anything. Neither did Grayson. They signed the forms in silence. The nurse explained the procedure, simple cheek swabs, minimal discomfort. The boy sat quietly, legs swinging from the chair, watching cartoons on the mounted TV. Grayson stared at him. The longer he looked, the more undeniable it became. It wasn't just the features, it was the mannerisms, the way the boy held his chin when he was curious, the way he tapped his foot when waiting. The child was a mirror he hadn't known he'd left behind. After the samples were taken, the nurse told them results would be ready in 48 hours. As they walked out, the boy tugged Nia's hand and asked, "Who was that man?" Nia paused. She knelt to his level. "He's someone Mommy used to know. That's all you need to know for now, okay?" The boy shrugged, then asked if they could stop for plantain chips on the way home. Grayson stood nearby, heart heavy. He didn't follow them. He didn't say goodbye. He just stood there, wondering how a man could feel so much and still be so uncertain about what to do next. 2 days later, the clinic called. The nurse's voice was gentle. "The test came back," she said. "You are the biological father." Grayson sat at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, unable to speak. "Mr. Whitmore?" the nurse asked. "Yes," he finally said. "I heard you. Would you like a printed copy mailed or emailed?" "Both. Understood." He hung up and leaned back in his chair. Outside the window, the city moved on. People walking, cars honking, life continuing like nothing had shifted. But everything had. His son was real, and he was 7 years late to the party. He drove straight to the salon where Nia worked, a small shop with bold pink trim on the front windows. It was the kind of place filled with laughter, gospel music, and the scent of pressing oil and cocoa butter. He waited outside in his car for 20 minutes before she stepped out for her break, sipping a smoothie and scrolling through her phone. She looked up and saw him. No surprise in her eyes. He stepped out and walked over. She held up a hand before he could speak. "I know. They called me too." He nodded. "So?" she asked, voice tight. "He's mine." She didn't flinch. He stopped, swallowed. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," she replied. "Just know what that means." He shifted on his feet. "I want to be part of his life." She looked at him, steady and cold. "Do you want to be part of his life? Or fix your guilt?" Grayson opened his mouth but stopped. Nia continued, "He doesn't need a savior, he needs stability. If you're serious, you show up. Not with gifts, not with promises, with presence. Every day, without drama. I'm not trying to buy my way in. You couldn't afford the cost even if you tried." He exhaled hard, nodding. "Okay, what now?" "Now," she said, tossing her cup into a bin. "Now you wait. I'll think about the next step. Until then, keep your distance. Nia, I mean it." He stood frozen as she walked back into the salon. And once again, She left him standing outside. Grayson stared at the paper in his hand, though the words on it hadn't changed in the last hour. Paternity test result. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. There it was, scientific, sterile, unshakable. The truth had landed, not like a revelation, but like a weight. He leaned back in the chair of his high-rise office overlooking downtown Charlotte, phone buzzing unanswered on his desk. The skyline glittered like glass, tall, flawless, distant, the kind of world people admired from the ground but didn't dare touch. Somewhere below, his son, his actual son, was probably in class, drawing on construction paper or counting by sevens. And Grayson hadn't even been there when he lost his first tooth. His mind replayed the boy's laugh outside the clinic, the way his feet shuffled just like his did when he was little. It wasn't just genetics. It was a reflection. He had missed so much. But knowing the boy was his didn't fix the bigger question. Why had Nia kept him a secret? He couldn't move forward until he understood. And that meant one thing, going back to where it all ended. The door to Nia's apartment was smaller than he expected. A second-floor walk-up tucked behind a laundromat near Beatty's Ford Road. The stairs creaked as he ascended. When she opened the door, she was wearing a hoodie and leggings, hair pulled into a high puff. She looked like she had just finished cleaning. She didn't smile. "You get your answer?" He nodded, holding up the envelope. She opened the door wider. "You hungry?" He blinked. "What?" "I made stew chicken. Either come in and eat or keep standing there looking pitiful." He stepped inside. The place was clean. Modest furniture, mismatched dishes drying in a rack. A school folder sat open on the coffee table, math problems and a drawing of a boy standing between two stick figures, one with curly hair, the other in a suit and tie. Grayson swallowed hard. They ate in silence for a while, spoons clinking against bowls, until Nia finally spoke. "I know you have questions." "Yeah," he said. "But I'm not going to scream or make a scene. I just want the truth." She nodded, staring at her bowl. "Then sit back, because it ain't a neat story." He leaned back, hands clasped, and waited. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you," she began. "Let's start there." Grayson looked up sharply. Nia continued, voice steady. "I left because staying would have crushed me, piece by piece." She set her spoon down. "You remember that day your mother showed up with the envelope?" He nodded slowly. "She didn't just hand me money," Nia said. "She said things I never repeated, words that told me exactly where I stood in her world." Grayson looked down, guilt curling in his gut. "What did she say?" "She said I was a temporary distraction, that you were a legacy, that women like me don't marry men like you. We inconvenience them, maybe entertain them, but we don't fit." She said she didn't care if I was pregnant, because the child would never be a Whitmore. Grayson froze. "I didn't even tell her I was pregnant yet," Nia said, laughing bitterly. "She just assumed, and let me know in no uncertain terms, that if I cared about my own dignity, I'd disappear. Quietly." "She threatened you?" "She didn't have to. Her money did it for her." Grayson's jaw clenched. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "No, you didn't. And that's the problem." She stood, pacing the room slowly. "You never knew because you never asked. Not really. You were so busy building your empire, I was becoming invisible. And when your family cornered me, you weren't there. I would have defended you, would you?" she asked, pausing. "That day at the brunch, you let her talk sideways to me and didn't say a word. I saw it in your eyes, Gray. You loved me, but you were ashamed of the fight I came from." His throat tightened. "That's not true, but it was. Back then, at least." She turned and looked him in the eyes. "I left because I refused to bring my child into a world that would hate his mother and own his father. I didn't want him growing up in a house where every smile came with strings, where love had conditions. I didn't want him watching me shrink." Grayson stood now too, voice low. "You should have told me. I wanted to. Then why didn't you?" "Because I didn't trust you," she said bluntly. "I didn't trust that you'd choose me over them." It stretched for several seconds before she sighed and rubbed her temples. "I built a life for him. It's not flashy, but it's honest. He knows who he is. He knows where he comes from. He doesn't know me. That was the point." Another pause. Grayson took a breath. "I know I can't undo any of it, and maybe I don't deserve anything. But I'm not here to take over. I just want to be part of it, whatever that means. Nia studied him. That depends. On what? On whether you're ready to show up consistently, not just because the guilt is eating you alive. He didn't respond. She added, because if you want to be in his life, it has to be for his sake, not yours. No Instagram dad moments, no media stunts, just quiet presence. Grayson nodded. Okay, I'll think about it, she said finally. We'll go slow. You'll follow my lead. You'll earn his trust before you ever call him your son in public. Of course, Nia exhaled. I'm not trying to punish you, Grayson. I'm protecting my peace. He smiled barely. That's the NIA, remember? She smiled back faintly. You don't know this, Nia. Not yet. That night, back in his apartment, Grayson stood by the window. The skyline didn't impress him the way it used to. Success felt different now. He turned away, pulled out the drawer by his nightstand, and placed the test results next to a framed photo of him at a company gala, the one he used to be proud of. Then he pulled out a new frame, empty for now, and set it beside it. Something was changing, and he was ready to earn his place in it. Grayson wasn't used to being told no, not in the boardroom, not by clients, not even by competitors. When Grayson Whitmore wanted something, he paid for it, built it, or negotiated it into existence. That's how he climbed. That's how he stayed on top. So naturally, when it came to his newly revealed son, his first instinct was to act, to provide. He had resources Nia never dreamed of. Tutors, private schools, summer STEM camps in Seattle, therapy covered before a problem ever showed up. He was going to fix this. He just had to figure out how to do it, without offending the one person who had already lived 7 years without needing him. On a chilly Saturday morning, Grayson pulled up in front of Nia's apartment. His car stood out like a spaceship parked among the older sedans and SUVs lining the curb. She opened the door slowly, coat already on, arms crossed. You didn't text. I wanted to talk to you in person, he said, stepping onto the sidewalk with a paper folder in his hand. Nia glanced at it. What's that? Options, he said. Things I can do, things I want to do. She didn't move. He opened the folder slowly. I've looked into some really solid schools. There's one, Carrington Academy. It's got a scholarship program I could. No. He blinked. You didn't even hear me out. I don't need to, she replied. We're not enrolling him in some elite prep school because you just found out he exists. It's not about making up for lost time. Yes, it is, she cut in, and I get it. But Grayson, he has friends, a teacher he trusts, a community that loves him. He doesn't need to be uprooted. Grayson tried to keep his tone calm. He could have opportunities. He already has opportunities, she said sharply. They just don't come with marble floors and alumni legacies. He paused, then tried a different route. What about you? She raised an eyebrow. What about me? I could help you move to a better place, closer to uptown, safer neighborhood, better schools down the line. She exhaled slowly. You're missing the point. Then explain it to me. She stepped down one stair, now face to face with him. This isn't about proving how much money you have. It's about whether you're ready to do the hard work of being a father. I am. Then show up. Don't wave your wallet. Her voice was calm, but behind her eyes he saw how tired she was, how many nights she probably stayed up trying to make ends meet, how many times she said no to herself just so her son could have a yes. I don't think you understand, she said more softly now. When you grow up like I did, like we did if we're being honest, money doesn't just fix trust. In fact, it usually breaks it further. I'm not trying to buy trust, he said. I'm trying to show you that I can contribute. You want to contribute? She said, backing toward the door. Pick him up from school one day, help with homework, sit through one of his drawn-out science project explanations without checking your phone. He managed to smile at that. He talks a lot, huh? Boy, don't know how to stop, she said, cracking a grin before it faded. But it's beautiful. I'd like to hear him sometime. She looked at him carefully. There's a school play in 2 weeks. It's nothing big, some paper trees and homemade costumes. He's a cloud. Grayson chuckled. A cloud? She shrugged. Yup, and proud of it. He nodded slowly. Can I come? You can sit in the back. No limo, no cameras, no fancy gifts, I understand. If he sees you and decides to speak to you, follow his lead. Not yours, I can do that. She looked him over one last time. We'll see. That night, Grayson sat in his quiet condo, looking around the granite and glass fortress he once called home. His assistant had left a folder on his desk, upcoming meetings, merger schedules, and a list of media outlets trying to secure interviews. He ignored it. Instead, he opened a separate file on his computer, a blank document titled Liam. He didn't even know if that was the boy's name yet. But he would. He wasn't trying to buy his way in anymore. Now he had to earn his place. 2 days later, he arrived at Nia's salon with a box of markers and a note tucked inside. For the Cloud's next big art project. No pressure, no expectations, just backup supplies. Gee, she didn't reply. But the next afternoon, he received a picture on his phone. It was a lopsided rainbow drawn with bright markers. In the corner, a little stick figure in a gray puff of color said, "Clouds are cool." No caption, no emojis. But it was enough to make Grayson smile for the first time all week. August, Grayson watches his son rehearse, bonds subtly. Tension rises with Nia, and fiancé starts sensing change. The community theater auditorium smelled like glue sticks and dried tempera paint. Rows of fold-out chairs were arranged in front of a low stage adorned with cut-out clouds and cardboard trees. Nia had told him to come early, sit in the back, and not interfere. Grayson did exactly that. He took a seat in the farthest corner of the room wearing a gray hoodie, ball cap low, and no assistant in tow. This wasn't about control. This was about watching. On stage, a dozen second graders shuffled through cues, whispering lines and waving paper props. Some forgot where to stand. One kid tripped over a bench. The teacher, a woman in her late 40s with an exhausted voice, gave directions from the front row. Grayson saw him, the boy. Stage left. Small gray sweatpants, white sneakers with frayed Velcro, a crown of cotton ball clouds taped to a headband. He wasn't the loudest or the most coordinated, but he had presence, natural rhythm. When he spoke his lines about rain falling softly to the earth and clouds hiding secrets in the sky, the room quieted. Even the teacher smiled. Grayson's throat tightened. That's my son. Behind the curtain, Nia moved with ease, taping decorations, helping a shy girl fix her sunray costume, quietly instructing another student to project louder. Her voice was calm even when the stage manager forgot the cue music twice in a row. He watched her work like she was born for it. She hadn't noticed him yet. Or maybe she had and was just ignoring him, which would be very much like Nia. During a break, she stepped into the hallway for a water bottle. Grayson followed discreetly, catching her as she leaned against the vending machine. "Hey," he said softly. She glanced sideways. You said 2 o'clock. I figured you'd forget. Or send an assistant. Not this time." She took a sip, then leaned her head back against the wall. "He's been practicing his cloud speech for weeks. Wakes me up reciting it." Grayson smiled. "He's good. He's got stage presence." "He gets that from me," she smirked. He chuckled. "No arguments here." She turned to face him fully. "He asked me about you again last night. Said he remembers your face from the clinic, from the art supplies, from the salon window." "What did you say?" "I told him you were someone I used to know, someone I'm learning to know again." He nodded slowly. "Is that true?" "Depends," she said. "You still trying to fix everything overnight?" "No, just showing up." She stared at him a moment longer, then looked down at her watch. "Lunch break's almost over." He didn't move. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not shutting the door." She hesitated. "Don't thank me yet. This isn't a promise." He nodded again. "I know." But she didn't walk away. They stood there for another second. No walls, no lawyers, no boardrooms. Just two people who had once been in love, now orbiting something they both helped create. And it felt real. Back in the auditorium, rehearsal resumed. The teacher had paired parents with a few kids to help move props and test cues. Somehow, Grayson ended up standing near the boy. They didn't talk, not at first, but the boy kept sneaking glances. "You look like me," the boy finally said, staring up with narrowed eyes. Grayson froze. "You think so?" he said carefully. The boy nodded, tugging at his cloud hat. "Mom says I look like me, but I think I look like someone else too." Grayson crouched a little to meet his gaze. Well, I think you look like someone pretty special. I made this, the boy said, pointing to a paper sign that read, Rain Brings Growth. Grayson smiled. You write that yourself? Uh-huh. Clouds help plants drink. I'm a cloud. That's a big job. The boy puffed his chest. I like helping things grow. Grayson felt his heart twist. You do a good job of it. They didn't say more, but the boy stayed close, helping him carry a paper tree backstage. Nia watched from across the room, a mix of pride and caution in her eyes. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't stopping it either. Later that evening, Grayson sat across from a woman in a black dress and expensive earrings. They were at a rooftop restaurant in Uptown, candles flickering, wine half-sipped. Madeline, his fiancée, was talking about their engagement party timeline, but Grayson's mind kept drifting. Gray, she said sharply, drawing his eyes back. Sorry, he said. Long day. She narrowed her eyes. You've been off lately. Work's been intense, more than usual. You didn't even comment on the venue list I sent. I'll look at it tonight. She tilted her head. Is this about your company's expansion or something else? He hesitated. He didn't reply. She leaned forward. I've seen the way you've been sneaking out of meetings, taking calls and not explaining. That's not like you. It's complicated, he said, voice quiet. Try me. He stared at her, polished, brilliant, from a family that had known his since prep school. She knew which fork to use at every course and how to charm board members in 3 sentences or less. But she didn't know him, not really. Not the version that used to share noodles with a woman who could braid 3 heads in an hour and still make it to class. He set his napkin down. There's something I need to tell you. The air inside the auditorium was warm and buzzing with parent chatter, toddlers and laps, and the scent of peppermint from someone's purse. Folding chairs creaked. Phones hovered in the air, ready to record. It wasn't a grand stage, but to the parents in the room, it was Broadway. Grayson sat in the back, dressed down, baseball cap pulled low again. He kept his promise. No limo, no show, just presence. But this time, he wasn't alone. Madeline sat beside him. She had insisted. If it's important enough to skip meetings for, I should see it too, she'd said, applying deep rose lipstick in the mirror that morning. He hadn't corrected her, not yet. Now as music started and lights dimmed, she leaned in. So which one is the cloud? Grayson didn't answer. His eyes were already locked on the stage. There he was, far right, cotton ball crown slightly lopsided, but he stood tall, scanning the crowd with sharp, alert eyes. Welcome, everyone, said the teacher at the podium. Tonight, our 2nd graders present the weather parade, a journey through nature, imagination, and teamwork. The applause was enthusiastic, mostly from proud aunties in the front rows. Grayson smiled faintly. He could feel the excitement radiating from the stage, from him. The boy said his first lines without a hitch. Clouds are more than fluff. We carry water, we carry dreams. He held his pose. Big voice, clear diction. Grayson's chest swelled. Madeline clapped politely. Cute, she whispered. He's really into it. Grayson's eyes never left the stage. The boy took a step forward with the rest of his group. Now the thunder and lightning kids were joining in, but his gaze drifted, slowly, carefully, toward the back row. Their eyes met. Grayson froze. The boy tilted his head, eyes squinting like he was solving a riddle. Then came the moment. He pointed, small finger extended straight at Grayson, and with unfiltered joy he shouted, "That's my dad!" Gasps. Several parents turned. A few kids on stage glanced in his direction. One teacher blinked, unsure whether it was part of the script. Grayson's heart dropped into his stomach. Madeline sat up straighter. "Excuse me?" the boy repeated, louder this time. "That's my dad." Laughter rippled from a couple of kids on stage. One mom in the front row whispered, "Did he say dad?" The teacher at the mic cleared her throat quickly and motioned for the next scene to begin. Music resumed. The kids launched into a chant about rainbows and seasons, but the energy had shifted. Madeline turned to Grayson slowly. He didn't look at her. He couldn't. She leaned in, voice sharp but controlled. "What is going on?" He stood up quietly. "Sit," she hissed. "I'll explain after." "No, you'll explain now." People were still glancing back. Nia hadn't moved from backstage, but she had definitely heard. Her jaw was tight, hands clenching the edge of the curtain. Grayson whispered, "I need to step out." Madeline stood too. "Who is that child?" He didn't respond. She stepped back, grabbed her coat off the chair, and without another word stormed down the side aisle, heels clapping against the floor, eyes blazing. Some heads turned to follow her. Whispers rose again. Grayson remained frozen. The boy was now dancing to a song about fog and sunshine, oblivious to the chaos he just created. Grayson sat down, face forward, breathing tight. He didn't leave. After the final bow, the kids scrambled off stage to find their parents. The clamor of congratulations and hugs filled the hallway. Nia came out first, face unreadable. She marched directly toward him. "I told you to stay invisible." "I did. I swear. I didn't say anything. He saw you, Grayson." "I know. He called you Dad." "I know." Her voice was low but sharp. "Now teachers are asking questions. Parents are whispering. You've just dragged him into something he can't explain." Grayson looked pained. "I didn't plan for this. You don't have to plan for things to hurt," she said. "You just have to show up unprepared." I didn't say a word to him. "But you came with her?" Nia snapped. "Really?" She insisted. "You should have insisted harder." Before he could answer, the boy came running out, arms wide. "Mom, did you see me? I said my lines." The boy turned to Grayson. "Did you like it?" "I loved it," Grayson said softly. "You were amazing." The boy smiled wide. "I told everyone you're my dad." Grayson blinked. Nia froze. "You did?" The boy nodded. Miss Harris asked who the man in the back was. "I told her you're my dad. I know it now. I can just feel it." Nia gave him a look, gentle but firm. "We'll talk about that later, okay?" The boy nodded and ran off toward the refreshment table for cookies. Grayson and Nia stood in silence. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just sighed. "Everything's about to change," he nodded once. "I know." Later that night, a ping hit Grayson's phone as he sat in his car. From Nia. "There was a woman with a camera in the back row, channel 14. You might want to call your people." He read it twice. Then another message came through, this time from his PR chief. Subject: local blog just published a picture. Mystery CEO attends school play called Dad by unnamed student. Grayson stared out the windshield at the parking lot. The photo was blurry, but the caption was enough. It had begun. Grayson sat in the back of his town car, tie loose, jaw clenched, watching Charlotte's skyline blur past tinted windows. His phone hadn't stopped vibrating since sunrise. The school play moment, the one that should have stayed a beautiful, quiet milestone, had spilled into public view overnight. A grainy photo of the boy pointing from the stage had hit a local blog and gone viral by dawn. The caption: "Cloud Boy calls out mystery dad. Is he Charlotte's green tech tycoon?" By noon, 3 larger media outlets had picked it up, and the board had already scheduled a private emergency touchpoint, code for a reputation scrub. He leaned forward and tapped the driver's shoulder. "Let's head to the tower." Inside the sleek, glass-wrapped conference room, the air was thick with tension. Half the board had already arrived. Lawyers, investors, and PR strategists sipping coffee from biodegradable cups while glancing at their watches. Claire, his VP of Communications, spoke first. "It's not the worst headline we've dealt with, but we can't ignore it." An older board member with salt and pepper hair adjusted his cufflinks. "This company was built on clean energy, clean ethics, clean branding. You're the face of that." Grayson remained silent. Another executive leaned in. "Who is the kid, Grayson? You haven't responded to anyone's emails." He looked around the table, then finally said, "He's my son." A pause. Claire blinked. "Excuse me?" "He's mine," Grayson said, steady. "From a relationship in college. I only just found out." "So it's real?" someone muttered. "Not a rumor?" He nodded. "Does your fiancée know?" "She does now." Several murmurs echoed through the room. Claire pulled her notepad closer. "All right, we need to talk strategy. Are you prepared to issue a statement?" "No." She looked up. "Grayson, I'm not hiding it, but I'm not turning my son's existence into a PR cleanup." The older board member folded his hands. "Then be prepared for backlash. Sponsors don't like scandals, especially ones involving deception and mystery children." Grayson's voice remained calm. I didn't deceive anyone. I was left out of the loop. That may be true privately, Claire said carefully, but perception is everything. He leaned forward, then changed the perception, not by spinning it, but by telling the truth. I have a son. His name's not public. He didn't ask for attention, and I'm going to protect him, not parade him. And the fiancé? Someone asked. Grayson looked away. That's in progress. He arrived home later that evening to find Madeline waiting in his condo lobby, hair pinned, coat pressed, eyes cold. She didn't wait for an invitation upstairs. You could have told me, she said, heels clicking on the marble floor as they entered his living room. I was going to. When? After our wedding? After your mystery child popped up in a magazine spread next to us? He tossed his keys on the counter. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No kidding. They stood facing each other, the silence louder than any shouting match. He's 7, she said flatly. Yes, and the mother? Her name is Nia. Of course it is. He flinched at the tone. She kept him from you? He nodded. I didn't know. I only found out a few weeks ago. And now what, Grayson? You want to play dad on weekends? Make up for lost time with a few field trips? I'm trying to do it right. She folded her arms. With her, I'm trying to do right by him. She didn't move, didn't blink. Let me ask you something. Go ahead. Are you still in love with her? Grayson hesitated. That was her answer. She shook her head slowly. I knew something changed. You've been somewhere else these past few weeks. I thought it was pressure, maybe burnout. But it's her. It's him, he said. He changed everything. And what about me? I never lied to you. No, she said softly. But you stopped choosing me the moment you saw her at that bus stop. He said nothing. She walked to the door and turned back. You need to decide who you are, Grayson. The polished future you planned with me, or the messy truth that came back into your life. She opened the door. But you don't get both. And then she left. Later that night, Grayson sat alone in the kitchen, turning a small drawing over in his hands. The one Nia had texted him days earlier, a stick-figure cloud, smiling between two tall figures. He poured himself a glass of water. Not whiskey, not wine. His mind raced, not with panic, but with clarity. The board might be angry, the headlines might swirl, the image might crack, but some things were worth the fallout. The next morning, Claire called him again. Media is cooling slightly. Blog moved on to a local council vote. You're not trending anymore. Good. But the board still wants reassurance. That you'll contain it. I won't deny it, Grayson said. I won't hide him. You're risking a lot, I know. A pause. Claire's voice softened. Grayson, are you sure about this? He thought of the boy's eyes on that stage. The way he said, that's my dad, with no fear, no shame, no hesitation. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The day had started like any other. It was a Friday, crisp with the tail end of fall wrapping its colors around Charlotte. Nia had packed her son's lunch, reminding him not to trade his apple slices for gummy bears again. He laughed, kissed her cheek, and skipped to the school bus with his usual energy. But by noon, her phone rang. It was the school nurse. Ms. Jackson, the voice said, serious but steady. He's running a high fever, and he's been complaining about stomach pain. We think you should come now. Nia's heart dropped. She rushed from the salon, keys trembling in her hand, apron still tied around her waist. Her mind ran faster than her car could. What if it was appendicitis? The flu? Something worse? When she got to the school, her son was curled on a cot, pale and shivering, a cold compress on his forehead. He looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way she hadn't seen since he was a baby. Nia nodded, brushing her fingers over his hair. Mama's here, baby. I'm right here, the boy whimpered and reached for her hand. By the time they arrived at Levine Children's Hospital, his fever had spiked to 104. The EMTs had placed an oxygen mask on him as a precaution, but Nia could see the worry in their eyes. They moved quickly. Intake, vitals, labs. She answered every question, twice, her voice cracking only when they asked if there was a father who should be called. She didn't hesitate. Yes, she said. Grayson Whitmore, call him. Now. Grayson was in the middle of a damage control call with his legal team when the hospital rang. The moment he heard the words, your son and emergency, he dropped everything. No second thoughts. He was at Levine Children's in less than 25 minutes. He found Nia in the pediatric waiting room, pacing. The color drained from her face when she saw him, but she didn't stop him from approaching. "What happened?" he asked. "Fever. Vomiting. They think it might be viral, but they're checking for complications. Where is he now?" "Room 412. They won't let both of us in at once. They're running tests." Grayson swallowed hard. "How long has he been sick?" "This morning," she whispered. "He was fine, laughing, joking. Then he crashed." She sat down suddenly, as if her legs gave out. Grayson sat beside her, silent. For the first time, they weren't exes or strangers or co-parents with boundaries. They were just two people, terrified for the same small soul. An hour later, they were allowed in together. The boy lay in a small hospital bed, 4 taped to his hand, cheeks flushed but eyes closed. A nurse adjusted the blanket and smiled gently. "He's sleeping. The fluids are helping. We'll have test results soon." Nia pulled a chair close and gripped her son's hand. Grayson stood by the window, jaw tight, hands deep in his pockets. There were no answers yet, just the soft beep of the monitors and the mechanical hum of the Ford drip. Nia leaned her head against the bed's edge. "I should have known something was wrong yesterday. He said he was tired, but he always says that when he wants to skip reading homework." Grayson moved closer. "You're not a bad mom, Nia." She didn't answer. He lowered himself into the chair across from her. "You're the strongest person I know," he said. Still no response, but her eyes welled up. "He's everything I've done right," she whispered. "Everything." Grayson's voice was quiet. "I see that now." The boy stirred slightly in his sleep, mumbling something they couldn't quite catch. Nia leaned in to adjust his blanket. Grayson watched her. She had dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were dry from salon chemicals and hand sanitizer. Her face was tired, but her presence was whole. He realized something in that moment, something he'd always known but never had the courage to say. "I never stopped loving you," he said. Nia froze. She didn't look at him, didn't speak, just sat there, still, the weight of his words pressing against the silence. "I told myself I moved on," he continued. "I thought building the company, getting engaged, that it meant I had let go." He looked down at his hands. "But the moment I saw you at that bus stop, everything I buried came back. And now that I know he exists, that we created someone so full of light, I can't lie to myself anymore." Finally, she looked at him. Her eyes were unreadable. "Grayson, I know it doesn't change anything. I know I hurt you. I didn't fight for you when I should have. I let them push you away. But I see it now. You are the only thing real in my life." Nia exhaled shakily. "You're exhausted. I'm wide awake." She turned her gaze back to the bed. "He comes first. I know." She looked back at Grayson, really looked at him. And for the first time in years, something in her expression softened. Not forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of it. That night they both stayed in the hospital room. One chair, one window, one little boy asleep between them. No lawyers, no boardrooms, no press, just family. Broken maybe, but still breathing, still fighting together. The sun hadn't yet risen when the first camera flash flickered outside Levine Children's Hospital. Grayson didn't see it. He was asleep in the corner chair, head tilted back, one arm crossed over his chest, the other resting on his knee. A thin paper blanket covered his legs, courtesy of the night nurse who had taken pity on both him and Nia. Nia sat beside the hospital bed, hand loosely wrapped around her son's fingers as he slept peacefully for the first time in 12 hours. The fever had broken at 4:17 a.m. The nurse said it was likely viral, a short-lived but intense bug going around the school, nothing life-threatening. Still, it had scared them both more than either wanted to admit. By 7 a.m., the parking lot outside was dotted with local news vans, microphones, tripods. Grayson's name had leaked. Whether it came from a nurse's careless whisper or a staff member trying to make a few bucks off a sighting, it didn't matter. The outside world now knew. Claire, his VP of Communications, called at 7:11 a.m. sharp. "I need to talk to you," she said without preamble. "I'm at the hospital," Grayson whispered. "I know. So do half the reporters in Mecklenburg County." He rubbed his eyes. "That was fast. They want a quote." "Then tell them the truth, Grayson. I'm not hiding. Even if it's not about hiding, it's about strategy. Just let me draft something." He ended the call. At 8:02 a.m., A young reporter from WCN Charlotte tried to enter the pediatric wing. Security turned her away, but the photos were already online, blurry, zoomed in through the glass. One showed Grayson leaning over the boy's bed. Another showed Nia brushing hair off her son's forehead. The caption, "Whitmore Family Mystery. Tech CEO seen comforting sick child at Levine." Inside the room, Nia saw the headline on her phone. She sighed. "This is what I didn't want." Grayson sat up straighter. "I can handle it." "Can he?" she asked, nodding toward their sleeping son. He didn't respond. "He's a kid, Grayson, not a headline. I know that." She looked him square in the eye. "Then act like it." At 9:15 a.m., Grayson stepped into the hallway. A nurse tried to stop him. "Sir, the press is—" "I'm aware." He walked calmly through the corridor, past vending machines, past tired parents, until he reached the main entrance. As soon as the glass doors slid open, microphones flew toward him like darts. "Mr. Whitmore, is it true? Are you the boy's father? Is this related to the school play last week? Why are you at Levine? Is the child okay? Was this a secret child?" Grayson raised his hand. They quieted, sensing a quote was coming. He spoke evenly, firmly. "Yes, he's my son." Flashes popped. "He's 7. His name is not public and I intend to keep it that way. But I'm his father." "Why now?" one reporter shouted. "Because I only just learned the truth." "Is he ill?" "He's recovering well, thank you." "What about your fiancé?" He didn't answer that. "Will you be introducing your son to the public?" "No, he's not a prop. He's a child. That's all for today." He turned and walked back inside, hands steady, pulse racing. Upstairs, Nia was waiting. "You went out there?" she asked as soon as he returned. "Why?" "Because I'm not going to pretend anymore." She shook her head. "You think that helps?" "I don't know if it helps them," he said, glancing at the bed. "But it helps me, and maybe one day it'll help him, knowing I didn't let the world deny him." She sat back in the chair, eyes tired. "You're just like your father when you get stubborn." Grayson smirked. "That's the worst thing you ever said to me." "Then you're doing all right," she murmured, but she didn't fight him anymore. By noon, the door to the hospital room opened slowly. Nia turned, expecting a nurse. Instead, Grayson's mother stepped inside. Pearls, pressed coat, perfect posture. Behind her, his father followed, more subdued, but no less stiff. Nia stood up immediately. Grayson rose too. "I didn't call them." His mother offered a tight smile. "We saw the news." Nia crossed her arms. "Of course you did." Mrs. Whitmore looked at the child in the bed. "He's beautiful." "Don't," Nia said coldly. "Don't start now. We didn't come to make trouble. You already made enough of that years ago." Grayson's father cleared his throat. "We came to apologize, both of us." Grayson narrowed his eyes. "Now?" "Yes," his mother said. "Because we were wrong, we judged, we interfered, You paid her to disappear," he interrupted. Her voice wavered. "We thought we were protecting you." Nia stepped between them. "Your version of protection looks a lot like erasure." "I'm sorry," Mrs. Whitmore said, voice soft. Nia stared at her, then looked at the boy, then back. "No," she said simply. "You don't get to walk in here, meet your grandson in a hospital bed, and rewrite history." She pointed to the door. "You need to go, but—" Grayson stepped forward. "You heard her. His parents didn't argue. They just turned and left, slowly, awkwardly, for once without power." When the door shut, Nia sat back down. Grayson looked at her. "You okay?" he asked. "I am now." That night they both stayed again. Same chairs, same window, same boy. But this time, something else settled between them. Not just fear, not just fatigue, but quiet trust. It had been 2 days since Grayson's statement outside the hospital. 2 days since the blogs stopped speculating and started shifting to other headlines. The frenzy had cooled, but not entirely. A few investors were still calling. Some sponsors had questions. The board issued a tight-lipped press release, corporate speak for, "We're figuring out how to handle this." But Grayson didn't care anymore. His priorities had shifted, radically, permanently. His focus wasn't on optics or shares. It was on the small boy sleeping in a hospital bed and the woman who hadn't smiled at him in 7 years. He stepped into the boardroom at 8:30 a.m., sharp, wearing no tie and no script. Claire stood near the window, eyes sharp. They want a plan. I've got one, Grayson said. The room quieted. He looked around the table. The same table where he'd once pitched solar grids to cities, the same room where his name had been etched into the foundation of the company. The company he built. I'm stepping down. The murmurs were instant. Claire's eyes widened. What? I'm resigning as CEO, effective immediately. Grayson, she started. I'll retain advisory shares and voting rights, but I won't be the face anymore. Why now? Someone asked. You are the brand. I can't be the brand and be his father at the same time, not without putting him in the crosshairs. Someone cleared their throat. We can manage the press. I don't want my son managed, Grayson said firmly. I want him safe. I want him free. Claire folded her arms, her voice softer now. What about the work you've done here? It'll speak for itself. And if it doesn't, then maybe it wasn't that meaningful to begin with. Silence. Then finally, one of the senior partners nodded slowly. All right, Whitmore. Go be a father. Grayson nodded once, and that was it. No fanfare, no plaque, just freedom. That evening he returned to the hospital with fresh socks, a soft stuffed elephant under his arm, and warm meals for Nia and the nurse on duty. The boy was getting stronger. His fever had stayed down all day. He was still tired, but color had returned to his cheeks, and his appetite was creeping back. Nia took the takeout box from him wordlessly, then paused. You didn't have to. I stepped down, he said quietly. She looked up, surprised. From the company? He nodded. I'll stay involved in the background, but no more speeches, no more cameras, no more meetings. She didn't say anything for a moment. Why? Because I want him to grow up without flashbulbs in his face. She studied him carefully. You did all that for him? He nodded. And for you? She set the box down, arms crossed. I never asked you to give anything up. I know. I didn't want to be a burden. You never were, he said, his voice low. You were the only thing that kept me grounded when all of this was still just a dream. She swallowed hard. I'm not asking for a second chance, he added, not romantically. I know that's earned, not assumed. She nodded slowly. That's good. Because I don't know if I can go back there. I wouldn't want you to, he said. I want us to go forward, however that looks. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was just honest. That night, after the nurse dimmed the lights and the boy finally drifted into a deeper sleep, Nia pulled her chair close to the bed again. Grayson sat on the other side, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. They didn't speak for a while, just watched him breathe. He loves the elephant, Nia finally said. Grayson smiled, figured it looked like him. She chuckled, just a little. You're still corny, she said. Never changed, he replied. A pause. Then softly she said, he asks about you now, not in bursts, just like you've always been there. I'll learn that being true. Another pause. Then Nia looked at him, not with suspicion or anger, but with calm. She whispered, You're doing okay, Gray. He met her eyes, and for the first time since college, she smiled at him. Not big, not wide, but real. And in that hospital room, with their son sleeping peacefully between them, Grayson realized something. Sometimes love doesn't come back with a bang. Sometimes it tiptoes in quietly, when the pain finally makes space for peace. Monday mornings had taken on a rhythm neither of them expected. Grayson would pull up in his modest sedan, not the sleek luxury model he used to drive, and wait outside the small brick elementary school, tucked behind rows of maple trees. At precisely 3:15 p.m., the bell would ring, and out would come their son, lunchbox dangling, one shoelace untied, his head swiveling to find one of them. Sometimes it was Nia standing beside the school's front office. Sometimes it was Grayson with his hands in his pockets, trying not to appear as nervous as he felt. What surprised them both was how natural it all started to feel. Homework became a shared task. She handled math and reading. He helped with science experiments. They met twice a week at a small coffee shop halfway between her apartment and his temporary condo. It was neutral ground. No ghost of their past arguments clung to the booths. No memories haunted the tabletops. Nia would sip on her chai latte, flipping through spelling worksheets, while Grayson scrolled through calendar apps and fielded alerts from his scaled-back advisory role. He spelled delicious as D-L-I-S-S-H-E-S, she said one afternoon, holding up the paper with a laugh. Grayson leaned in. That's how I used to spell, until 9th grade. I think it runs in the family. They laughed together, not forced, not polite, real laughter. It wasn't always perfect. They had awkward pauses, moments when past hurts threatened to seep into present conversations. But they were trying, and their son noticed. One Friday after school, the three of them went to the barber shop on Beatty's Ford Road. The owner, a family friend of Nia's, welcomed them in. "Aye, little man, you ready for that fresh cut?" he called. Their son grinned and nodded. Nia sat nearby, scrolling her phone. Grayson leaned against the wall, watching the boy in the chair. "Remember when you used to braid my hair in college?" Grayson asked quietly. Nia didn't look up. "I remember you cried when I used the edge control. That stuff burns," he said, mock defensive. She finally looked at him and smirked. "You said, and I quote, 'This is not what love feels like.'" They laughed again. The laughter lingered as they left the shop. Later that week, they ran into each other outside her salon. She had just locked up, arms full of product bags, when Grayson appeared, coming back from the grocery store with snacks for the weekend visit. "Let me help," he offered, reaching for her bags. "I got it," she said, but he took a few anyway. They walked side by side toward her building, quiet again. There was a different kind of electricity now, subtle but undeniable. It wasn't tension, it wasn't nostalgia. It was something new, something dangerous. When they reached her doorstep, she turned to unlock the door, and he handed her the last bag. "Thanks," she murmured. "You're welcome." She turned. He was still there. For a moment they stood in the quiet space between sidewalk and doorway. He looked at her, she looked at him, and then he kissed her, just once. Soft, brief, like a question. She didn't push him away, but she didn't lean in either. When he pulled back, her eyes stayed closed for a second longer than necessary. Then she stepped back, hand on the doorknob. "Good night, Grayson." And the door closed gently behind her. He stood there for a long moment, his heart pounding. Not because he hoped it meant everything, but because for the first time in years it didn't feel like nothing. The bakery on South Tryon was buzzing with weekend orders when Nia walked in holding a cake box nearly as big as her torso. Inside was a superhero-themed sheet cake, iced in vibrant blue and gold, with the words, "Happy 8th Birthday, Champ." The celebration was set in the back room of the local rec center, a modest but cheerful space decorated with streamers, balloons, and a handmade poster that read, "You are loved." Nia had drawn the letters herself late the night before while Grayson inflated balloons until his fingers hurt. 8 kids from school came, plus a few neighbors and cousins. Music thumped lightly from a Bluetooth speaker. Pizza boxes stacked high on the counter. Games had been planned, presents lined up on a table, and even a magician hired last minute by Grayson who wanted to make something disappear that wasn't my credibility for once. Nia chuckled when he said it. Truthfully, he was winning her back one moment at a time. During the party, Grayson handled the snacks while Nia helped manage the craft station. Their son ran around wearing a paper crown, giggling with chocolate frosting on his cheeks. Every few minutes he'd look back to make sure both his parents were still there. "Not in this lifetime," Nia said honestly. Then she smiled. "But I'm glad we are." The magician called all the kids together for the finale. He asked the birthday boy to stand in the center. With a flourish he pulled a stuffed rabbit from an empty hat and gave it to the boy. Everyone clapped. Grayson and Nia exchanged a smile, and then their son took the microphone. "Can I say something?" The room quieted. He cleared his throat, gripping the mic with both hands. "Thank you for coming to my party. And thank you, Mom and Dad, for the cake and the games and the balloons. But," he paused, looked at them, "I have a birthday wish." Nia's stomach clenched. Grayson straightened. Their son turned slowly to face them. "I wish we could all live in the same house, together." Silence, soft murmurs among the parents, kids blinking, unsure whether it was part of the show. Grayson stepped forward, hand instinctively rising, but he stopped himself. Nia's face didn't move, not a smile, not a frown. She just blinked slowly. Their son looked between them. "Please?" Nia walked over, knelt in front of him, and kissed his forehead. "That's a big wish, baby," she whispered. and big wishes take time. He nodded solemnly and hugged her. Grayson joined them, resting his hand gently on the boy's shoulder. They posed for photos together, smiled, ate cake. But the air had shifted. That night, after the last balloon had deflated and the decorations were tucked into boxes, Nia returned home to her quiet apartment. She kicked off her heels, pulled her hair into a scarf, and sat on the couch staring at nothing. When the knock came at 9:30 p.m., she hesitated. But it wasn't Grayson. It was the building security guard holding a small envelope. "Guy said to give you this." Wouldn't say his name, just left. She thanked him, took the envelope, and closed the door. Inside was a folded letter, handwritten. "Nia, I didn't want to say this in front of him, but I meant it when I told you I still love you. Not the memory of you, not the idea of us. You now. You, in all your strength and sarcasm and sleepless nights. You, building a life with one hand while holding our son in the other. You deserve everything I didn't give you the first time. So I won't ask you to forgive me. I won't ask you to start over. I'll just ask you to let me earn your trust, whatever that takes. Because I want to be more than his father. I want to be your partner. Happy birthday to our boy, Grayson." Nia folded the letter slowly. Her hands didn't shake, but her heart did. The same street corner, the same cracked sidewalk and faded bus stop sign. But this time there was no drizzle in the air, no tension, just the glow of a fading Charlotte sun warming the pavement in soft amber. Nia stood there with her purse tucked tight against her side. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie that read "Hair Hustler." Her curls were tucked beneath a wide headband, and her hands stayed in motion, fidgeting, smoothing her shirt, adjusting her earring. It had been 2 days since the birthday party. 1 day since the letter. She hadn't replied, but she'd read it twice, then again, and now here she was. From around the corner came a familiar sound, the low hum of an engine slowing down, the rhythm of tires rolling over potholes. A silver SUV pulled up to the curb, not a luxury model, not a showy brand, just clean, practical, modest. The driver's window lowered. Grayson, no suit today, no designer coat, just a charcoal crew neck, soft denim, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept but had found some kind of peace anyway. He didn't say anything. Neither did she. The engine idled quietly. She took a breath, then another. Then she stepped off the sidewalk, not rushed, not hesitant, just certain. She opened the passenger door and got in. The click of the seatbelt was the only sound for a moment. He didn't look at her right away, just gripped the wheel, exhaled, and finally glanced over. "Hey," he said, voice low. "Hey," she replied. Another beat. "You sure?" he asked. "No," she answered. Then she smirked. "But I'm not sure." He laughed under his breath, nodded once, and pulled away from the curb. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It felt like something else now, like the quiet that comes after a storm, when you can hear birds again. As they rolled through the city, past murals and corner stores and that stretch of road where their son learned to ride his bike, they didn't say much. They didn't need to. Grayson stopped at a red light, then glanced sideways. He's gonna lose his mind when he sees us together. He better keep his voice down if we go into that school. They both laughed. A few minutes later, they pulled into the parking lot of his elementary school. Kids were already trickling out, backpacks bouncing, laughter spilling into the late afternoon. Their son spotted them before they even got out. He ran like he hadn't touched the ground in weeks. "Mom, Dad, together!" Nia opened her door. Grayson stepped around to meet her. Their son tackled them both in a hug that knocked the wind out of Grayson and made Nia lose her balance just a bit. She looked at Grayson. He looked at her. Then, quietly, "Let's go pick up our son." As they drove off together, their son in the back seat humming a tune from music class, Nia reached across the console and rested her hand on Grayson's. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was driving alone. Thank you for watching Stories by Mr. Flex. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Did it hit close to home? Did it make you believe in second chances? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that like button, share with someone who needs a little faith and love, and subscribe for more unforgettable tales right here on this channel. Until next time, Keep living, keep loving, and keep believing.